Hello and welcome to Aging Insights. I'm Kathy Rowe, Executive Director of New Jersey Advocates for Aging Well, and today we're going to talk to Michal Beeri, the Director of the Herbert and Jacqueline Krieger Klein Alzheimer's Research Center at the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. Dr. Beeri, I'm very happy to have you with us today to talk about a very important study that you're working on. So can we start off, just tell us about the study?
Sure. First, thank you for inviting me to speak here. So this is a study of offspring of Alzheimer's patients who are all from either Middle Eastern North African or from South Asian origins. The reason why we focus on those people, they have to be middle-aged, okay? So they have to be between the ages of 45 and 70. And the reason why we focus both on middle age and those specific populations or communities is because they comprise about a third of the world, and there is almost zero research about Alzheimer's disease in those communities. Often our participants ask, why is it important to study specific populations? And the reason is that the genetics are different, the lifestyle is different, the food is different, the exposures are different, the way people react to stress or are educated is different. And that makes a major difference on how or on the risk and the protection against Alzheimer's disease in those different communities. So from our point of view, focusing on populations that were severely understudied in the Alzheimer's field is a great opportunity for us to contribute to those communities' knowledge and to the doctors who treat them, diagnose them, monitor them, provide them with novel medications.
So are people of Asian and North African descent at a higher risk, or do we not know that yet?
We don't know that yet. I mean, this is how little research there is for those communities. For the South Asian population, and specifically for the Indian community, there is a good reason to think that they are at increased risk because the Indian community has the very highest rates of type 2 diabetes in the world. After the age of 50, about 50% of the Indians have type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
And type 2 diabetes doubles to triples the risk of developing dementia. So this kind of exemplifies why this is so important to us.
So if South Asian and Middle Eastern and North African populations are underrepresented in research and in other areas of research too, there are certain ethnic or cultural groups that are underrepresented. Why do you think that is? And how does this underrepresentation impact the research and even treatment for diseases?
Okay. So this is a very important question, all right? We are focusing on populations that essentially have never been studied or very little. Now there is a little bit of research. African Americans historically were underrepresented in research and still are, but there is a major effort to include African Americans in research, although I have to say that in the clinical trials, African Americans and Hispanics, even though they are comprise a significant portion of the American population, they're very underrepresented. And to your question, why, right? Why is that? There's so many reasons, but some of them are that if historically you haven't been educated and exposed to the importance of research, of what research can do good to you, then there is fear. You know, why do you want to know about this, about those things? Why do you need to know about it, about me? People are scared of stereotyping, that they'll have a stereotype of having some brain disease or developing some brain disease, and that this may affect other factors in their lives. Many times the leaders of the communities are not aware of how research can support, promote, improve the health of specific communities. And essentially, this is what we're here for.
Okay. And I think in different communities, there are different ideas of what is dementia and what is considered normal aging. So could you tell us a little bit about what are early signs of dementia that people should be aware of, and how do we distinguish that from normal aging?
Sure. So first, I do want to mention, people get very confused between Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So just for the audience or for whoever, for the listeners to understand, dementia is an umbrella name for many different diseases that have different pathologies in the brain and that look like memory impairment that is becoming worse and worse, which is the typical symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Now, if you take 1,000 people with dementia, about 70% of them will have pathology of Alzheimer's disease in their brains, and therefore people get confused and think that dementia and Alzheimer's disease are the same thing or different.
Right,
But in
right.
fact, the vast majority of dementia patients have Alzheimer's pathology. There are other types of dementia. There is vascular dementia, which affects the vessels of the brain. There is Parkinson's related dementia, which includes other types of pathology in the brain, etc. The main symptoms or the most typical symptoms of dementia will be typically a memory impairment that is objectively measured. So someone telling us, oh, I forget names, I forget where I put my keys, I forget where I put my glasses.
Mhm.
I am actually happy when people come and tell that to us, right? Because it means that they're having something that is so dramatically common that it cannot be the disease per se. When
Okay.
we are looking for objective measuring or measurements of memory impairment, and then we expect to see also at least one more cognitive domain that is impaired. That could be orientation in space,
Yeah.
orientation in time, divided attention, executive functions, capacity of understanding a sense of humor, capacity of making decisions. Sometimes we see kind of a decline in common sense, someone that
Mhm.
is very logical and there is a decline. One of those has, at least one of those has to accompany the memory impairment for us to be able to diagnose dementia. And then we want to make sure that there is also a significant functional decline. All right. So we had a participant who was 94, was complaining that she got lost when she drove to
Okay.
the center. And in reality, when she came and I was concerned because of the lack of orientation, she said, I've been a lost soul since I was born. And that calmed me down because it's not a change, right? People typically say, you don't know who she was. You have no idea how smart and sharp he was. You hear sentences that really reflect a decline. And lastly, we look to see that it's not something else. We want to make sure it's not a tumor, it's not a stroke, something else that
Mhm.
might be causing the memory and other cognitive impairments.
Okay, thank you. Now you had mentioned looking at risk factors, but you also said protective factors. And I think that's something that people aren't as familiar with. So what are protective factors? And are they genetic, or is it something that we can actually do something about or help ourselves?
So there are some genetics that supposedly maintain resilience of the brain, but most of the protective factors are actually the opposite of the risk factors. So just as an example, not having diabetes will decrease the risk of developing dementia, not having hypertension, not being obese. Physical activity, both building muscle and a cardiovascular physical activity are crucial contributors to maintenance of brain health.
Mhm.
Not smoking. And two very important ones that are directly related to the brain are not having depression. So if a person feels depression or is diagnosed with depression, that person should be treated well. And cognitive activity. So just like physical activity promotes several biological changes, positive biological changes in the brain that ultimately help the brain maintain health, cognitive activity also promotes such positive changes directly in the brain.
Interesting. That's good to hear. Um,
Yeah.
One of the reasons we wanted to interview you is we want to help you find people for this study. We want to encourage people to participate because any research in this field is so important, especially as our demographics are changing and we have, we're living longer, our population is getting older. So to help people understand what this would mean for them, can you walk us through what it entails for a study participant and what they should expect if they were to sign up for this?
Sure. So again, participants need to be either from Middle Eastern, North African, or from a South Asian origin. They need to be between the ages of 45 to 70. And one of their parents must have had Alzheimer's disease or related dementias. We see them every 2 years for 3 meetings. The first meeting, the person signs an informed consent, which is where we detailed very clearly everything that goes on in the study. So if there are certain pieces of the study the person doesn't want to participate in, we need to know and the person needs to understand. And then we do cognitive assessments and we draw bloods, and those bloods will serve in the future for genetics, for novel biomarkers, etc. That meeting, we can come to the participant's home, or if the participant prefers, they can come to us. Most people prefer that we come to their home, which is not a problem. Everyone is trained and accommodating.
Okay.
The second meeting is all online, and those are primarily lifestyle questionnaires that can be done either on the phone or on a Zoom call. And again, we accommodate to the participants at whatever hour of the day it makes it easy for them. Between the ages of 45 to 70, most people work. So we really try to accommodate before the working day, after the working day. And the third meeting, the participant does have to come because we do a brain MRI. And in that brain MRI, we look at really everything. We look at the vasculature, we look at the shape, at the volumes, at the cerebral blood flow, how the blood-brain barrier is functioning, or if it's leaky. And we collaborate with many very young, wonderful, creative, passionate investigators that are developing new technologies that can measure or can assess very early signs of the disease. So participants who agree after the MRI, if they agree to stay for another 15 or 20 minutes, we do an EEG so we can measure neurophysiology, etc. And those are, I have to say, most participants are so lovely and wonderful that they always agree to do it.
That is good to hear. And I know I've had all of these kinds of tests. They are painless. I think that would scare away a lot of
Everything
people. They're
is
afraid.
painless.
Everything is painless.
Yes, except for, for a blood draw that is, that can be a little annoying, but it's a blood draw. And I should say that we reimburse participants for the time that they were contributing to the study for up to $175. So different parts of the study compensate with little different amounts of money, with a max of $175 for each time that they come.
Okay, good. So, when people might be interested, but again, a lot of people are afraid, or they say, why should I do this? What difference is it going to make? And what can we say to people to encourage them? They might think that, it's not, I feel fine. I don't have symptoms of dementia. It's not going to affect me. But what can we say to people and tell them to relay the importance of participating in a study?
Sure. So there are many levels of why it is important to participate in research, and this is very important to me to confer or to explain it in a very clear way. The first and most important thing is that if we don't do research on specific populations, all people are going to be treated as if they are one same person. So the majority of the research in our country has been done on white people. Then people will be treated as if they have the same genetics, as if they have the same lifestyle. Now, I must tell you that there are certain genes that affect more white people than Black people. There are certain genes that affect more the adverse events that one might have with the novel medications. And if we don't know what a population has or doesn't, how can we be precise and specific in treating them and optimizing everything that we can give to maintain brain health on those people at high risk due to a family history and in general? So that's reason number one. Reason number two which in a relatively young sample, which is what we're recruiting now, is less common. But since we do blood draws and since we do an MRI, if there is something big that happens, or something, God forbid, a tumor or something that we can see, and the person is not aware of it, then we would tell the person, listen, this is all for research, but we see something and we believe you should go to the doctor and take care of yourself.
Okay.
And the third reason that may be in some ways possibly even the most important one, or a very important reason, all the time there are new medications coming out. And the more the medications are being developed, the more they go backwards in when they are going to have their strongest effects. Meaning that in the very earliest stages of the disease, when sometimes you don't even have clinical symptoms, but your brain is giving signs, your neurophysiology is giving signs, your behavior is giving signs, this is where you want to treat. When people are participating in a study like that, we see longitudinal, we see them every 2 years, and we see that there is a signal that something is happening with them and they're declining. If we have anything new to offer, they're the first ones to be offered.
Good. Very good. And I think I'm so glad that you're mentioning and talking about the distinction between people, their genetics, their lifestyles, their cultural upbringing, and the impact that can make, because that was something that was overlooked for far too long in medicine. And it's so good to hear that this is the priority of this study to focus on different groups. So it sounds like a wonderful study. How many people are you looking for altogether to participate?
So we want to have at least 750.
Okay.
And the reason for such a number is because it allows us, from a scientific point of view, to ask many questions. People who have a specific genotype but don't have another one, people who have diabetes versus non-diabetes, people who have hypertension versus non-hypertension, people who have a certain pathology in the brain versus others that don't. So we need quite a large number of participants to be able to truly ask every question that may be important for those communities.
Okay. So for people who are interested in participating or want to bring family members or friends information about this, how can they learn more about the study and how can they sign up to participate?
Sure. So we have our center's general number, which is 848-932-8415. And should I repeat it?
Please.
Sure. 848-932-8415. And we have our center's email, and those emails go directly to the research coordinators that are responsible for this study. And it's at ADRD, Alzheimer's Disease Related Dementias, ADRD, at B, like bunny, HI, which stands for Brain Health Institute, BHI, .rutgers.edu. So it's ADRD at BHI.rutgers.edu. And if people call, leave a message with a phone number or an email that we can return to them, or they send an email with details, we will gladly call them back.
Okay. And what is the time frame for this? When is the deadline for when people have to sign up? Is there a day you're not taking any new participants?
So this is an ongoing study. We see participants on a daily basis. We scan them on a daily basis. So whenever, again, we really, I say that our participants deserve a 6-star hotel treatment, and we really, because it's contributing to science selflessly, and we make every effort to accommodate for them.
Well, thank you. This sounds like a wonderful study. We really hope that we can help you, and this broadcast will help you get the 750 participants that you need. Do they need to be in New Jersey?
Yeah, they have to be about 50 miles around New Brunswick. So that gets a little bit, it can get a little bit of Pennsylvania, a little bit of Manhattan, but around, because the team really goes to see them. So preferably.
We can help you find them. Thank you very much, Dr. Beeri, for being with us today, and also for this important research project and all that you're doing for the Alzheimer's research.
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much, Kathy.